listening to KZOM, Oleander Public Radio.
Welcome to Innsmouth, stranger.
Hi, I'm Rob Whiten from the Innsmouth Book Club. Join me and my fellow guide John Chadwick as we take you on a fortnightly tour of Innsmouth. We visit places such as the Picture House, the Library and Innsmouth Museum to discuss all aspects of weird fiction, whether it be book, film, music, TV or art. As well as that, we stop over at the Gilman House to have a chat with a resident guest. That includes authors, artists, musicians, in fact Lovecraftian creatives of all types. You can find our free shows on Patreon, and there you can also sign up as a patron, which brings you bonus content, plus a monthly PDF copy of Innsmouth News, which features articles, author spotlights, all the latest news and reviews, and more. You can find us at patreon.com/InnsmouthBC. We hope to see you soon, because remember, Innsmouth isn't just a place, it's a state of mind.
Hey everyone, it's me, DB. Just reminding you, we have t-shirts in the shop. Just go to pgttcm.com, check out all of our cool t-shirts and stickers. Heck, we even got some shelf curtains in there. Keep clean, look cool, have cool stickers to put on stuff. Join us on Patreon and get a free sticker. Or don't. It's up to you.
Hello, everyone. This is me, DB Spitzer, jacked up on cough syrup and antihistamines. It's cold flu season in Oleander, especially if you have kids in public school. Dave, you're a lone bachelor on a goat farm. No innuendo intended.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the lack of innuendo.
Yeah, no, because people have written me as like, is this supposed to be like a joke about? And I'm like, no. Dave is a shepherd. Dave's
Goat herd.
Goat herder.
No offense. If you don't want to be a shepherd, you can, but I'm a goat herd.
Dave's a goat herder. He doesn't have any dogs or crooks or anything like that. But yeah. I don't think you have dogs or crooks or anything like that. I think you...
I have a lot of crooks, actually. What we call them stabs. That's just a word of art that the professional goat.
Oh, okay.
My staff foo is masterful. I've been able to pull out a goat 20 mile an hour run right past me at 6 inches and still slow it down. Master of staff foo, if I do say so myself.
All right. Cool. That sounds like a anime in the making right there. Anyway, so Dave, how's everything up on the goat farm?
Wet.
Yeah.
Wet. And it just, it's like we live in northern Oregon.
Yeah.
I've gotten so used to this dry weather, but this time last month we were complaining about the fires. So
yeah,
there's no fires.
There's no fires, or at least we're not getting the smoke from the fires because the fact that it's like raining, like everything I can think of to describe this rain is not proper for radio or podcasts even, but we got to think about radio first. I think anything goes on podcasts, so I could say something about like a horse on a peeing on a flat rock or something. But
so speaking of,
yeah,
we have a wonderful interview today.
Oh, cool.
Edward Morris, who's got a new book. I mean, depending on when you're listening to this, but it's coming out tomorrow, so you're probably there. Edward is a very articulate and passionate speaker.
Oh, sure,
so
yeah.
Warning to a few maybe parents, there may be a few words that snuck by depending on how much you want to edit it.
Yeah, I don't
But
edit
he's a great speaker.
Edward Morris. No, I love Edward. Edward's awesome to listen to. I regret the one time that I gave him a free T-shirt and then had to skedaddle so I could make it to another panel. But yeah, no. Edward's awesome. I love having conversations with him, and I love seeing him around at the H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival, and love listening to him. The best I can describe it is ranting and raving in an articulate manner. But yeah,
because we love our articulate rants and raves.
Definitely.
And this new book, we'll talk more about it on the interview.
Oh, definitely.
It's decades in the making.
Okay, cool. All right. And then after that, we're talking about conditions and poisons, I think.
Who's got a new book. I mean, depending on when you're listening to this, but it's coming out
that's a pretty
tomorrow,
tall order for Dungeons and Dragons. But yeah, there's a lot of conditions, but we can kind of stream through it a little bit just because of the fact that, as you've talked about, it's just pretty much a series of pluses and minuses to your characters for a short period of time, or until you get the chance to get to a church, get to a healer, get to whomever. But yeah, there's more to that than that. So we'll be talking about that. All right, so right now we're going to hit that theme song.
We're gonna talk with the man. You're listening to KZOM, Oleander Public Radio.
Greetings, listeners. It is I, TV Spitzer and Farmer Dave, here once again to talk to you about the Cthulhu mythos, its books, its monsters, its unfortunate human casualties, its timeline in general, and even its tangential bits, like the dreamlands or things of a weird nature that are Lovecraftian leaning.
You're listening to KZOM.
Hey everyone, it's me, DB. New sponsor on the show, Glary. Glary offers a great price and better quality goods and services for music lovers. Are you looking for good prices, free shipping, 100% quality guarantee? Glary's got you covered. Guitars, bass guitars, mandolins. They've got saxophones, trumpets, drums. They've got guitar cases, amplifiers, all the stuff that you need without having to break the bank. Inexpensive doesn't have to mean cheap. Check out the show notes to find more about Glary. 20-watt amplifiers for under $50. Hard cases for your electric guitar for under $80. Guitars themselves for under $90. Come on, folks, check out the show notes. Get a Glary. Once more we head into those dark woods, further feeling those malevolent forces upon us. Further feeling those malevolent forces upon us. Malevolent forces upon us. Us. This episode is brought to you by California Tea House. California Tea House is a family-owned tea store where you can find some of the world's best loose-leaf tea and organic herbal tea blends. Like a fine wine, there is no comparison between fine loose leaf and common broken leaf tea bags. So, check them out. Check them out. They have quite a bit of pretty awesome tea collections. I'm a huge fan of their white teas. They have a tea club that you can join, but, they've got green tea, black tea, white tea, oolong, Robios, and herbal tea. They've also got teaware. So check out California Tea House in the show notes. Once again, we walk down the lightless stone staircase in the middle of nowhere.
You're listening to KZOM.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Dave, how are you doing?
A little drier. I took the time of the theme song was playing to dry my hair a little bit more.
Oh, good. All right. Good. Glad to hear that. Yeah, no, I went out for cough syrup and medicines and orange juice and chicken stock and flour and everything I need to make my noodles, which it's early in the morning. I woke up about 4 hours ago to make noodles and then boil and then fry and then throw into stock with chicken, but no chicken chunks. I don't like my chicken noodle soup to have chicken chunks. I like it to be a clear broth, a super clear broth with noodles floating in it, and then you add like grilled chicken or cooked chicken in some way, or fried chicken if you're feeling a little fancy there. And yeah. And that's how I like to make chicken noodle soup. And that's what the kids are chowing down on now. And I get to have some after I record this. So I'm excited for this to be over.
Oh, well, good, because everybody, yes, I rewarded myself with English muffins and sausages.
Ooh.
But yeah, chicken soup is good for your body and your soul.
Oh, yeah. No, I had to run and get English muffins as well. A1 Grocery has a 2-for-1 right now on English muffins. So if you are living in Oleander or nearby Oleander, or if you are one of the people who survived the ghoul infestation in Bourne, Oregon, I don't care what the mayor says. We have to talk about that just for a brief moment. If you're down there, they also have a 2-for-1 special on English muffins and a 2-for-1 on marmalade and raspberry jam at their A1 Grocery and Taxidermy. Our A1 Grocery and Taxidermy also has that special going on. And also, let's see, they've got...
That also applies to taxidermy squirrels.
Yes.
As well as English muffins. And the rare and delicious Welsh muffin.
Yes. So, yeah, no, they've got a BOGO buy one, get one on squirrel skeletons, stuffed squirrels. Also, just anything kind of in that family. So, I don't know if chipmunks are part of that, but they're just saying, like, anything like a small rodentia. If you want one stuffed, if you want the skeleton, buy one, get one. There is nothing like that in the meat department at all right now, but there is buy one, get one for buy 1 pound of ribs, get 1 pound of ribs free. So that's pretty nice. And that is pork ribs and beef ribs. Lamb racks are not part of this offer. And hey, everyone, let's get into the show. Dave. What are we talking about today with Nyarlathotep?
We are talking with possibly definitely I would say top 3 most recognized version of Nyarlathotep. And one of the ones that was definitely introduced by Lovecraft himself.
Sure.
And that is the Haunter of the Dark.
Ooh.
You know, I probably read this first when I was 13. You know, I've got ADD and stuff. Until I was like 15, I thought it was the Hunter of the Dark.
Yeah.
For the first couple of years as a teenager, I thought it was the Hunter of the Dark, but it's the Haunter of the Dark. So there are just sort of kind of like before, when we say the Haunter of the Dark, we're talking about the short story.
Sure, yeah.
When we say Haunter of the Dark, that's the entity. And you notice that Lovecraft doesn't reuse a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
There's only one short story that is truly about Cthulhu.
Yeah.
He comes up as mentioned. He's talked about in and the star swan colonizing the Earth is talked about in the Mountains of Madness.
Yeah.
But Call of Cthulhu is the only really Cthulhu-oriented story.
Sure.
Even if there's 3 or 4 stories about him in that one short story. Nyarlathotep, though, comes up a couple places.
Okay.
And the prose poem, which he is this pharaoh-looking stage magician scientist, and we also see him in A Haunter in the Dark.
Yeah.
And in this form, he's kind of like a huge bat with the trilobe eye.
Yeah.
So trilobe eye is kind of it goes right down, divides, sort of like an upside down Y. And I'm not sure if this was thought of independent, but the most famous trilobe eye is the Martians in the 1950s War of the World.
Okay.
Where not only the Martians, but the ships also have that trilobe eye.
Oh. Well, all right.
So it's the most common. Hey, I'm sorry. Hey, somebody just hit me with a question. I got to answer it. I'm
sure.
sorry.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Okay. It was one sentence. You can cut that out or there my ADD kicked in. So this trilobe eye is one of its most memorable characteristics. And we see that, there's the magazines. It definitely carries on. Like I said, I've always wondered if they came up with this for the War of the Worlds or if it was independent. The other thing, and this one I was, to be honest, I like the story a lot more now. I like the story a lot more now than when I was 13 and first read it.
Sure. Yeah.
So the two things that sort of bothered me when I was 13 was, first of all, these books and everything were in this abandoned church for decades.
Yeah.
Nobody graffitied on it. Now, Lovecraft doesn't state it, but as an adult, I can sort of feed in. The reason, yes, that a normal church would have been graffiti, a normal church, kids would have broken in and stole the books or something. But in this world, the church is protected by the spirit of Nyarlathotep.
Yeah.
Or Nyarlathotep. And that's what he basically used his powers to keep people out until Robert Blake came. Now, we think about, because what happens to Robert Blake, and we'll talk a little bit about it, it sets in a chain of events that lead to things like the creation of the atom bomb.
Okay.
Now, obviously, we don't see this in the 1936 story, but we'll talk a little bit more about that. That basically, Nyarlathotep basically prevented people from coming into that church and taking things one way or another. In fact, he even finds the skeleton there because it is Mr. N's will.
Gotcha.
The other thing, but I kind of get now, it kind of bothered me as a kid that the Haunter in the Dark could be destroyed by light.
Yeah.
But again, we don't know how much precognition the great old ones and the outer gods have. But we can assume, within maybe limits, that the avatars of Nyarlathotep were designed by him for a specific reason.
Okay.
And so he he maybe designed it. We don't know his science or his physics, but at the very minimum, this is all part of his long game.
Okay.
And so he allows it to have this weakness because he doesn't really need it. He can have this weakness and it'll still carry the story. And part 2 of The Haunter of the Dark is, of course, the thing in this, and this is actually part 3 of a series of books or short stories. So the first one is The Shambler from the Stars.
Yeah.
Where Robert Bloch, who at this time was like 16, 17, basically has these creatures kill a fictitious version of H.P. Lovecraft.
Okay.
Lovecraft loves that. He's not as, he says, cool. So someone writes Lovecraft and says, well, you got to kill Robert Bloch. So Robert Bloch Lovecraft kills Robert Blake off in The Haunter in the Dark.
Yeah.
Then about 20 years or so later, after World War II, after the first atom bomb is dropped, after Lovecraft has passed away, Robert Bloch writes The Shadow from the Steeple.
Gotcha.
And where this case, and again, spoilers for, an 86 and a 70-year-old story, the throwaway character, Dr. Ambrose Dexter, who literally is a throwaway character. He throws away the shining trapezohedron that brings forth the Haunter in the Dark. He gets possessed, and he becomes this other avatar. Literally, his body becomes an avatar, another avatar, maybe the same, maybe related, of the Haunter in the Dark. He becomes an avatar himself of Nyarlathotep. So if you think of these 3 stories together, especially the last 2, and I don't think that, Lovecraft didn't think, 20 years after I die, or 15 years after I die, Bloch's going to tie this all together in a 3rd story. But if you think of them as together, all these things that happen in The Haunter in the Dark, the short story.
Hold on, Dave. I have to go outside and throw up.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what. But if you think of this as Nyarlathotep's long game, that, everything, and obviously, Bloch knew this story. This was a rare case where The Haunter of the Dark was dedicated to Robert Bloch. Lovecraft doesn't do that very often. Almost exclusively, if he does, it's on the books he works with other people. So Bloch knew this story inside and out. And again, I don't think he's ever said this, but he kind of ties up everything that's maybe questionable in The Haunter in the Dark in The Shadow from the Steeple. That we understand that these things that happened in that story are basically planting seeds for things like the atom bomb, World War II, a new form of, an avatar of Nyarlathotep. So, yeah, the 3 stories together, Shamblers from the Stars, The Haunter in the Dark, and The Shadow from the Steeple, really, if you can, read them together. But especially the last 2 back to back.
Okay.
And so that kind of leads the question, and I'm sure that there are in, the role-playing games and short stories out there, what happened to the Haunter in the Dark? Did it become Dr. Dexter, or is it still out there?
Yeah, no, I personally don't have a theory on that. I figure something happened and we're just not privy to it, and it's just out there.
And I'm sure that there are people who've written short stories on it, but Bloch didn't.
Yeah.
Bloch never added a 4th story.
Okay. Brian Lumley did something called Clock of Dreams about all this, but I haven't personally read it. I just know that it exists.
Okay.
Yeah. Brian Lumley, great guy.
Is a Titus Crow story, I think.
Yeah, more than likely. And what I know, bro. I've never read Brian Lumley, but I've hung out with Brian Lumley. He's a really nice guy, lovely wife. I lit a few cigarettes for him back when I smoked, just a billion years ago. It feels like now. It feels like a totally different lifetime. But yeah. No. Um, yeah.
And in my opinion, and I have this opinion about many writers, I like his short stories better. But
sure.
Most writers,
Yeah.
better.
No. It's most writers I love. I love their short stories. I don't love their novels. I would much rather read a whole book of Stephen King short stories.
Absolutely.
A whole book. Like, it doesn't matter who it is. It's like, I don't like people's novels. Short stories make a lot more sense than novels do. Like, as a person, it's like, I can understand a short story, but like a huge novel that, like, intertwines all these things and does all this stuff, it's like, that's not how life works, buddy. But short stories always make more sense. Always make a lot more sense for me. Anyway, next I think we're talking about Horned Man, which is a Celtic aspect of Nyarlathotep, uh, resembling a human male with horns of a stag. It can only be seen under the influence of hallucinogens.
And this, I believe, came from the role-playing game.
Yeah. It's Keith Herber. So, yeah. Return to Dunwich or Dunwich. But yeah.
And the Celtics, of course, you don't have, the Hunt Master,
Sure,
or
yeah.
Henry, or Cineros, or but yeah, I kind of got the feeling too, and I haven't read this particular module, that it was kind of maybe just another version of Satan.
Yeah. It's Satan with antlers. It's no, it's the Celtic version of Satan, but also
and not that the horned man of Celtic mythology.
No.
I just got, because like when I went online, and Nyarlathotep, the horned man, all the pictures looked like Satan. They looked like a well-dressed guy with little horn nubs.
Yeah, and I think you can do a lot of stuff with the Horned Man, with Nyarlathotep, with a lot of this stuff, and like, you can have it be an avatar for a lot of different cultures, based off of like what kind of horned creature they have. Like, the Horned Man of Finland is going to be different than your Horned Man of like South America, of like your Horned Man of Brazil, or your Horned Man of Nubia, or your Horned Man of like Tasmania. I mean, it's,
or the Horned Man of Oregon.
Yeah. I was hoping you'd be like, Horned Man of Nubia. Why, he'd probably have little goat horns.
They would. I'm just not on the pickup today.
I know.
But yeah, so as far as I know, this version of this particular mask only appears in the role-playing game.
Oh yeah, definitely. But I feel like you can kind of like take this aspect and like do a lot with it. Like, Horned Man of the Rocky Mountains is gonna have big old curly horns and like hang out on like real rough cliff sides and such. I feel like it's kind of like somewhere between Pan and Satan is what the Horned Man is. Um, if you have to like take hallucinogens to understand who it is, you have to think about places where goats and hallucinogens are both found, and which is everywhere, and make something of it. It's like um, if you're in a city, you still have to like think, well, there's still goats, there's still horned creatures, there's still whatever in the surrounding areas of a city. A city takes place in a place where wildlife used to inhabit until like if you're in America 200 years ago, if you're in like Germany, what, like 500, 1,000 years ago, but you still had goats. You still have goats in some places. You go someplace into the Middle East, it's been like, what, 500, 1,000, 2,000 years since goats have roamed around and such like that. Or you go to less developed places, um, like anywhere where there's like a less developed place, and you're gonna find places with goats, and you can just kind of like pick and choose what kind of goats you're looking for. But not necessarily goats, but like horned creatures, cows, elk, muskox, water buffalo, uh, moose. Like if you're like in northern Canada, Alaska, whatnot, the Yukon, um, like the horned man is like probably going to be totally different, but it's a person creature that has a defense mechanism built in that probably has local lore to it that people base stuff off of. It's like it's a creature of burden. It's a creature of defense. It's a creature who lives high up there, but it's always a creature related to some kind of like it's a creature who's known to reproduce a lot. It's a creature who's known to have horns that like stab a whole bunch of things. It's a creature of majesty.
It's stubborn.
Yeah,
it can't be. It's difficult to control.
Sure. Generally, though, I think it's going to be like something that's like a little bit more wild than like domesticated. Like you're not going to have like the horned man of cows. You're going to have like more like horned man of like water buffalo, or you're going to have like horned man of like a white stag or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah. I think like the concept of like a white stag, or like, ooh, what if it's like a black stag, like a jet black stag, or like a jet black water buffalo who like roams the rice paddies and like, consumes the flesh of young children, You can do all kinds of stuff like that. Yeah, horned man. Dun-dun-dun.
Yeah, I think, and definitely, and maybe last in closing is the modern version of devils or demons have horns.
Yeah.
How many Halloween costumes did you see with the little tiny horns there? So
A ton.
there's this automatic sort of assumption
Yeah.
that there's wickedness.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't necessarily from playful wickedness to downright, massacre wickedness.
Mm-hmm.
But there's sort of this assumption, again, it kind of ties it back into this modern concept, or I don't mean modern concept, but the modern interpretation of Satan.
Yeah. I agree. All right. Well, everyone, that has been us talking about Hunter in the Dark, Horned Man.
Hunter in the Dark. I did it to you.
Oh, yeah. Hunter in the Dark
fault.
and Horned Man. And you can even do a Horned Woman. No one said that Nyarlathotep always has to be a man. Horned woman, like people would like see a woman with elk horns in some parts of the world and be like, hubba hubba, you look like Trubba. And, go for that stuff and be seduced by Nyarlathotep. It's like, who's to say that some of these quote unquote witches, uh, aren't necessarily Nyarlathotep, but anyway, that's something else to talk about in the future. We need to talk about D&D after this commercial break.
And after interview with Edward R. Morris.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be awesome.
Oh, the day before the election. We may need something to read during the election.
And I got my promo copies on Halloween morning.
Oh, cool.
All of these little synchronicities.
Okay, well, if you're ready, then I'll go ahead and start.
Just one minor thing I have to grab if I remember to do it. Just one second. I do apologize. Oh, wait there. Yeah, I'm not starting that without my vape pen. Okay, yeah, we can start it now. Thanks for your patience with me.
No problem. So, DB has stepped out of the room for a little bit, and in his place is Edward Morris. Hey, Edward, maybe if you could tell our audience, I know you've been on the show before, I believe, but maybe you could introduce yourself.
I've been writing science fiction and horror professionally. Well, I've been a writer my whole life, but I've been doing it professionally since about 2004. My first sales were to a British magazine called This Way Up, and the one of most of note, the one that they really called the breakout, was a little short story about John Lennon shooting Ronald Reagan in 1980. It was called Imagine, and Interzone bought that. Interzone are like my new best friends lately. I've been through several iterations of the magazine as a fan and a reader and as a contributor, and yeah, lots to say about that, but that's a whole other show.
Yeah. Well, make sure.
I was nominated for the Pushcart Prize in Literature, the Riesling Award, and the British Science Fiction Association Award. I have few over 150 publications, not of course 150 short stories, but 150 publications, somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 stories. And they've been in 6 languages so far. The most recent one was an Egyptian fellow, a doctor named Ahmed Al-Turki in Alexandria, Egypt, that just translated my story Jihad over Innsmouth from the Book of Cthulhu 1 into Egyptian Arabic. I was real stoked about that.
Oh, really nice.
Yeah, I kind of eat, sleep, and breathe the craft of writing. I've been involved with several different literary scenes in Portland over the years. The Lovecraft Film Festival are well acquainted with me. I was taken under the wing of Joe Pulver very, very quickly, and we all miss him very much.
Yeah.
Willem would pinch my cheeks and go, "Honey, you're taking your vitamin D. You look so good."
Yeah.
But that's real short all over the map bio.
It's a good one. Now, you've got a new book coming out probably a couple days after we release this on November 7th, right?
Correct.
And it's called Alphabet Lightning?
Alphabet of Lightning. It's the first book in a series called There Was a Crooked Man. The series is one that I started when I was 11 years old, and I could not be prouder of it. But yeah, the book is called Alphabet of Lightning, and the series is called There Was a Crooked Man.
So you started it 10 years ago. So I'm kind of curious because I have a lot of projects left over decades, and I think about dusting them off. How does it change when when time has gone by?
I kept it around through so many different stages of psychological development. I thought that it would just drift off and it would be something I was no longer interested in. I've had this happen with a bunch of stuff where I'm like, why did I even do this? It's like you wake up in the morning and you go, what was I thinking? But that never happened with me. There were enough people that were interested in the mechanism of the work and the concept of it. And those people were some of the same people that I was reading in Omni when I was a little kid trying to get the stuff all going. But enough people like that down the years had enough encouraging things to say that I was able to continue developing it. And it feels good. It feels like, I feel like the little girl that ate the whale in the Shel Silverstein poem when she was like, and she's just sitting there with a big smile on her face and she says, I did it because I said I was going to do it.
One bite at a time.
Exactly.
So when is it set? When is the story set?
It's all over the map. It starts out in the very, very far future. That part was inspired by Walter Miller's A Canticle for Leibowitz and Arthur C. Clarke's Against the Fall of Night. And again, all of these other things that I had access to when I was a little kid. And God's bless the people that made sure I had access to them. But it's super post-apocalyptic. We've already blown ourselves off the map with nukes once. And the civilizations that have gotten back together, they're all really weird and super pan-ethnic and fun. I'm doing more with them in the final book, Bastards of the Universe, when we return to that future. But again, we had nuked ourselves once, and the next big milestone that we got to was a perpetual source of clean energy. And one person who is a kind of a hacker and involved with the project manages to hack the thing and try to become a brand new god with it. And that's the crux of the story. But once we get out of the future and the time travel stuff starts, the time travel is real robust. If you like Cage Baker or Neil Asher or any of those real slam bang time travel type stories like Cowl or any of Baker's company stuff, it's like that. But once the time travel starts, it's set in all different eras. We start out in a linear sense, well, with Alphabet of Lightning, we get a glimpse of the future, and then we go right back to the 1920s. The first character that is one of these future people trying to reincarnate in an ancestral body, we follow. But yeah, there are all different eras because the hacker, the guy that tried to hack the clean energy generator and become a brand new god, as I mentioned, he shows up in all different eras with this dastardly little plan of how to do that. And people following him have to follow him to every era there is and kill him. Yeah, so that's the instant series potential. And I knew that when I was 11 and came up with the idea. I was like, this thing's going to take me my whole life. But I'm real stoked about the 1789 stuff. That was hard to get right. That was when the Crooked Man, the hacker character in question, that was when he found a host body he could sort of use, or at least figured out how to stay in a similar area with enough host bodies.
Okay. No, I'm looking forward to it. Now, you also wrote a recent short story I really enjoyed called Doom Scroll.
I'm so glad everybody liked that. This has gotten a lot of play.
So for those who have not seen it yet, it's basically, I mean, I knew what it was going in. I had to look at it several times and go, did I click on the wrong website? It looks like a news feed.
Interzone loves doing those kind of fakes with me. For some reason, when I get an idea for a good fake like that, the last one was the John Lennon story that I mentioned. They did it as a fake. Well, it was set up as a fake column in Cream magazine, which did not exist in the year 2000 that I was writing about, but it was totally a fake Lester Bangs column in Cream. And I got Bangs' voice so right and all the little encyclopedic stuff of what was going on at the time. People are like, who's putting Cream in Interzone? What even is this? This is a misprint. It's the same with Doom Scroll. What Doom Scroll is, there was a classic horror story that changed my understanding of horror. H.F. Arnold's The Night Wire. My good online friend, the editor Marvin Kay, put it in his collection, Masterpieces of Terror and the Supernatural. What Nightwire was, it was about these two telegraph operators, and one of them catches like a zombie apocalypse thing happening out in the Midwest that has to do with an interstellar source, and he's getting the telegraph feeds of all this as it's happening. I don't want to spoil that one or mine, but what Arnold did with that was so brilliant. I was reading it one night and I was like, this could happen more in the online age. It would just be a little bit different. This could happen right on Twitter. Why don't I do it on Twitter? And Gareth Jelly was responsible for the formatting, the editor of Interzone. He is just like my new best friend in so many ways with a lot of the stuff that we're doing. But he went through and coded the whole thing to look just like Twitter. He said that he had some sort of, I don't know what the program's name was, but there was some sort of a design program where you could shortcut a lot of things that would just make it look like that instantly. Yeah, God bless. It looks great.
It looks amazing.
Halloween, and then it's on IC Digital after that.
What I thought it reminded me a lot of Ambrose Bierce used to write some of his stories as if they were newspaper articles, and that's what it reminded me of.
Church. That's a real compliment. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Now, you've said that you obviously have a very good fictitious background, and you're really part of the H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival. So I was going to kind of throw this question out, see what you think.
In past years, I haven't been involved with the festival for a while because I haven't had any books to sell, and
sure.
My disability's been keeping me at home a little bit, but I have been involved with them.
But with that background, you got a pretty good understanding of weird fiction.
For sure.
And so my question is, and what is weird fiction to you?
It has to have that interstitial edge of not just being horror for shock or not just being noir for shock or really anything, but weird fiction to me. I mean, I could go off about Gael Garcia Marquez or Jeff Vandermeer or anybody that I like to read, but that's putting it back to one way that a person did it. Weird fiction to me is a lens that takes it that extra step where you're not just experiencing the story, but you have no idea what the fuck is happening to yourself as a being. Like it has warped your perspective that profoundly. Makes me think of something that great writer Stephen Graham Jones said about the process of writing in general. If it's something safe and cozy and comfortable, it's probably not what you should be working on. If you feel like you have any idea what you're doing, it's not what you should be working on. I feel like it's that way for readers too. When you get to the new weird stuff, Jella Biafra from the Dead Kennedys, he pointed out that he wanted to go after people who were just coming to sit and have drinks and have a nice time. He would chase them through the crowd. He would chase them through the mosh pit because that was he wanted to shake them up and get his message across. And weird fiction does that by unnerving someone so completely that there's nothing else you could call it but that. My 2 cents, adjusted for inflation.
No. So when you were discussing this, I was kind of thinking that maybe weird fiction has sort of a sense of awe or dread to it.
Both. It can induce wonder and dread in equal measure. One person I think that does that epically is my pal Scott Nicole. He just came out with that new collection, And At My Back I Always Hear, from Word Horde, and I've been rereading that one enthusiastically. He's able to use magic for the gut punch of the horrifying thing that happens next, or vice versa. He has a real canny grasp of the whole Spider Robinson dictum of joy is directly proportional to the pain which precedes it. Spider Robinson said that, and it's also true vice versa. But Scott can take the improbability and violence and the wonder and just switch them all so deftly that that's what makes his fiction really engaging. He's been a huge inspiration to my work directly and indirectly. Dude likes to send me salsa in the mail, like real New Mexico salsa.
Oh.
But
You get fiction and salsa from him. You can't beat that.
Beat that with a bat. Scott is an epic craftsman of a homie.
Homemade salsa.
Exactly.
Sounds like.
Exactly.
Excellent.
From scratch. But yeah, he has a real canny grasp on how to work that kind of angle where you have no idea what you're getting until the end of the story. I am extremely difficult to shock, and there's not a lot of sense of wonder in the story, The Croaker, but it manages to encompass all of that stuff that we were just talking about, that I can, to such a point that I consider it one of the best stories I ever read in the English language.
Oh, excellent.
I really don't want to spoil that one, but anybody who wants a hands-on look at what I am nattering on about Reed, and at my back I always hear, because he's got it down.
Excellent. Now, so you're writing about time travel. Now I'm going to kind of ask you to put on your sort of mental time traveling helmet.
For sure.
And say, where do you see horror and weird fiction going in the future?
There will always be a place for them, and it exponentiates the more that all of these wonderful things like police brutality and climate change and all of our dirty little oil wars are exposed on the internet, and we get to see what we're all really like up close and personal. The more media expands, the more the need for horror fiction and weird fiction and cosmic horror is going to amplify rather than become obsolete. Willem Pugmire said it on a panel with me once when he was still with us. He goes, why are people so interested in cosmic horror? Turn on the news. It's like that with all of the forms. How I see them changing is, of course, the way that any form changes. As media grow and amplify, and as generations warp and do their own thing, just like the previous one did before them, we're going to get new forms of it and new subgenres and whatever. But I think the biggest thing that we're going to see, and that I really want to see in new weird and cosmic horror and all of the other subfields, is that people are growing less fearless. People, Black and indigenous persons of color, gay people, trans people, everybody who has a voice, the less that some voices are heard, it's a general rule that the more horrifying shit has happened to you.
Yeah.
A lot of those people can really, really write. The first name that popped to my mind was Haley Piper, but there are billions. And as as information is disseminated in new ways, and as our means of consuming it change, there's going to need to be some powerful people at the reins, some powerful writers and powerful storytellers, and I see them every time I turn on Twitter. I see them every time I go to an event around here. The kids are all right.
Yeah, and sort of again to sort of maybe throw out Ambrose Bierce, he was definitely shaped, and he was writing to an audience that was shaped by the Civil War.
Sure.
And from a cultural point of view, and a lot of I think early writers my age, were shaped by the Cold War, even if they weren't writing directly about the Cold War. I think the writers in the future are going to be shaped about the last 4 years.
And they need people who can put it into perspective, people who are on enough middle sides of enough lines that they can sit there and say, wait, no, I actually have some experience of this. It's the past 4 years bring up a lot of examples, but I'm thinking in particular, and I don't want to get down this whole rabbit hole like too much because we only got so much time, but in particular the George Floyd protests. People who were actually on the street sucking down tear gas and involved have a different perspective than people who were getting the whole play-by-play from one news source or another on their couches. And people who were involved need to be writing about it. I have a series going that Interzone has optioned. They haven't bought it yet because they don't have the budget of one of the big boys, but they have optioned this series called I Am Legion. And apart from it being a really dark Marvel-style superhero story set in Portland, the thing that I'm most stoked about is that there is so much protest material in it. It only exponentiates as you go. And I am honored to be able to share that with younger people. I'm honored to be able to share that with people my age. And I'm honored to be able to share that with boomers who maybe didn't get all the information, let's be diplomatic and say. But it's like that with all kinds of issues. What was Harry Truman's great phrase? He called these things a bully pulpit.
Yep, exactly.
That's a little. I don't know that I necessarily go along with the choice of words, but a megaphone, a microphone, an amplifier, and a damn good one.
So, I do kind of regret that we are kind of running out of time here, but there's definitely a question I really want to ask you, and this is kind of our signature question. So, if you could be in charge of any creative project, any medium, you didn't have to worry about budgets, you didn't have to worry about trademarks, in any form, what's your dream project?
With no restrictions, that one is almost a no-brainer. We just lost Peter Straub not too long ago. I'm still fucked up about that. He was a huge influence. But if I could work my will in that sense, like somebody threw a bunch of money at Outcast and told them to make the movie Idlewild and just go have fun, like something like that, I would do a good, beautiful, respectful screen adaptation of Peter Straub's Coco.
Okay.
I've only heard fan people make noises about it. I never heard any production people make noises about it. That was just absolutely head unzipping. Manny Dengler is life. Manny Dengler is my spirit human. And I would love to be able to put that on film the way that I saw all that stuff in my head, especially the way the New York stuff, the way that the action started to ramp up and get a little equalizer like there at the end in New York. I would be able to put that to film.
Okay, excellent. Well, I would love to see that too. Now, for our people listening, like I said, your book should be coming out or will be coming out on the 7th of November, correct?
Correct.
And we'll make sure we have the links, but where are some places they can get that, as well as other of your projects?
BrokenEyeBooks.com has the pre-order link already. It is also available at Amazon.com and Barnes & Noble. I'm going to be talking to Michael Powell pretty soon and Kevin Sampsell, maybe see if we can get it in at Powell's in the small press. I will be putting my forehead to the floor 30 paces back for that one. Some other links to my stuff. Interzone will be having them. They have bought 6 of my longer short stories so far, and we're talking about 2 other novel series and 2 collections. So watch Interzone. Doomscroll is up at IZ Digital. As far as other links, there are so many, and now I feel like Johnny on the spot. Raphael Pezzella just in one of I cut that. Raffaele Pezzella, the Italian editor of Cosmic Horror, just did an anthology a year or so back called The Blackstone Tales for Lovecraftian Summonings. I have a black metal version of the music of Eric Zahn in there called Less. That's a good one. Raffaele puts out just dynamite anthologies. I think he's up to 3 or 4 by now in that collection. He's also a very accomplished industrial musician, but that's a good one. And I will send you some more links because my brain is whiting out. There are so many.
That's fine. Well, yeah. If you got links, we'll post them.
Yeah, I should have such problems.
Well, thank you so much, and hope to have you on the show again soon.
Absolutely, Dave. Thank you both for having me on. I always love this. Yeah, thank you so much.
Prepare for a spine-tingling, nerve-shattering podcast featuring all your favorite monsters. You won't believe your ears when you listen to Monster Kid Radio. Here your host, Derek M. Cook, and his ever-rotating stable of guests discuss your favorite classic and sometimes not-so-classic monster movies. Subscribe to Monster Kid Radio through iTunes or Stitcher, or visit MonsterKidRadio.net before the next weekly episode of Monster Kid Radio. Go through the archives for interviews with Sarah Karloff, Victoria Price, and Joel Hodgson. Listen to discussions about movies like Creature from the Black Lagoon, Island of Terror, and King Kong. And don't forget convention coverage from Monster Bash and the H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival. Classic monsters, modern talk, and the head of Rondo Hatton. Only on Monster Kid Radio.
This episode is brought to you by Donner. Check out the show notes to find a good deal at Donner. Like the sound of this? This is the Donner Island Delay, and the really cool Donner LP that I've shown off on, like, Instagram. Check it out. They've got some really good summer deals, and check out their snap deals as well. Use the link in the show notes to help support the show. Get yourself some cool musical instruments, maybe some patch cords. Cool. Thank you once again for listening to People's Guide to the Cthulhu Mythos. You can help show your support by going to the show notes and following any of the links that'll tell you how to support the show and how to support our guests. And thank you to all of our guests who you can find in the show notes. Rate, review, subscribe, and remember, patrons get priority access to asking us questions, suggesting topics, even, I don't know, submitting stuff. Actually, you don't have to be a patron to submit anything. That's how Dave got on the show, and that's how you can get on the show too. It's the People's Guide to the Cthulhu Mythos. Rate, review, subscribe, tell your friends. Thank you for listening. Back to the show. Oh, man, it is so early in the morning on a Sunday. I have not gotten a huge amount of sleep, but what I have gotten a huge amount of is Copper Cow coffee. I'm recovering from being super duper sick and drinking some rosemary. It's rosemary latte, but I like threw the cream packet away. Not a big fan of dairy. And it's just this rosemary coffee that's just making me feel a whole lot better. It's not like medicine. It just makes me feel good. Just be like, oh yeah, baby. You know what that's where
there is this argument that comfort for your soul is going to make your body. So yeah, if this is your comfort,
yeah.
And it's going to make it easier for you to heal. That's not a medical claim. Please don't come after me.
No.
But yeah, there's a good argument that if your soul feels better, your body will follow.
Oh yeah. No. And I've just had this, and I'm feeling good. It's a nice. It tastes better than cough syrup, I'll tell you that. And but yeah, no, Copper Cow.
Especially with so many of us, either kids or work, you gotta do stuff. So you might as well feel good.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. But speaking of feeling good, you know what always makes me feel good, Dave?
The stock market going up?
No. Talking about role-playing games.
Well, I think I stepped on you. What was it?
Talking about role-playing games.
Oh, well, let's feel good about talking about role-playing games.
All right. Okay. All right. Cue the music. Hey, Dave. Before we get talking about D&D on D&D, I heard you're playing, and we may have to cut this out in case you haven't really started yet. Have you had a chance to start playing Cyberpunk yet?
So, the Cyberpunk 2077?
Yeah.
Who'd have thunk that a 5-year-old computer that I basically use for doing emails and writing wouldn't support it? I thought it was, but it kept crashing. So
Okay.
I ended up. I may update my computer, but I gifted it.
Okay, cool. Well, I still suggest you play some. You probably have a computer that is still well enough to play like Fallout New Vegas, which is one of my favorite games of all time. So
I will have to try that.
I say try that. Learn how to use a keyboard and mouse, and then be amazing at Cyberpunk 2077 when you get a updated computer. Kind of like practice, because it's very similar in the way that you do it. It's in the way that you do it, I think, is what he was singing about. But yeah, don't get burned though.
I won't.
Okay. Don't get charmed though.
I won't.
Don't get confused and damaged and dazed and deafened and despondent, though. What?
Dazed and confused?
Yeah. No. I'm talking about conditions in D&D, getting blinded, which is creature can't see. There's bloodied, where you're below half your hit points, I believe.
Yes, and there's other ones too, like prone,
sure,
visible.
Yeah.
And what conditions are, and we kind of hinted, it's basically translating into mathematical rules situations.
Yeah.
So I go outside today and I'm cold, I put on an extra jacket.
Yeah.
Well, in game terms, I got a -1 until I increased my warmth. So they're basically word problems.
Yeah. No, I currently am dealing with conditions of being cold, so I put on extra layers. I'm not bloodied, I'm not blind. Well, I am slightly blind because I don't have glasses. I am confused, or am I dazed? I don't know. But due to the fact that I'm sick and on a lot of cold medication, I am fatigued. I might have, because of my cold, I am tipsy but not drunk. So let me see what else. Relaxation, no. Rested, restrained, stunned, unconscious. Yeah, no, I think I'm just dealing with exhaustion and confusion and that other thing that I talked about. But there's a lot of other things going on, Dave.
Sure, and I think conditions were an attempt to codify. And it probably started on 3rd edition, but definitely in 5th. Game masters, dungeon masters have always done this. Well, it's slippery. You got a -2 to your dex to cross that board. So game masters have always done this, and they've done it either A, because they think it's realistic, or B, the players are just making them mad because they're just cutting through all their monsters and NPCs and don't want to kill the players, but they want to make it tougher. And what 5e has done is more of an attempt to codify it.
Okay. All right. Do you have a favorite condition that you like to toss out at people?
Well, so I think one of the most and I think a lot of us that grew up with AD&D, even though there were conditions and obviously there were a lot of pages.
Oh yeah.
We're not as used to like applying them all the time.
Okay.
And so I think the one that is kind of maybe the most realistic, but also can kind of frustrating to the players, is exhaustion.
Yeah.
And that is just, we tend to think of these characters, even the first level, as being able to do these Herculean feats and have no problem. But yeah, they got to get tired.
Yeah.
Frightened is kind of a difficult one because for PCs, because we all want to think that we're not scared. And to some players, Frighten is almost as bad as like bringing characters to like one hit point.
Okay.
But it's a realistic, even and where Call of Cthulhu, I mean, that's insanity is this huge mechanic that the game is based on.
Yeah, you took both of mine.
Oh, sorry. Well,
it's okay.
They're the two main ones. I think there are the two main ones.
Yeah, no. I think Frightened is an amazing. I think Frozen, Frightened, and Fatigued are kind of like my three favorites. Fatigued, you're -2 on like all your rolls. Frightened, as long as you're in line of sight, you can't willingly move closer to the source of fear. In Frozen, there's just so many things with Frozen that you can do environmentally, magically, that it's just like, Frozen is
Stunned
amazing.
Too. Stunned's pretty close.
Yeah. What was that last one?
Stunned.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no. There's a lot of I know people who are like, oh, I love intoxication or paralyzed or petrified or poisoned, but there's so many, and there's so many that are great, like relaxation, rested, that it's just like, oh yeah, that's great, but it's like the one I personally always worry about is becoming unconscious, because then you don't know where you're going to wake up. You don't know.
As a player.
Yeah.
As a DM or a game master, that's the easy one. You don't do anything. They can maybe roll to try to regain conscious, then you skip their turn.
Yeah. No. Or you, as a DM, you do something that makes everyone unconscious. It's like you fail your savings throw. It's like a gas that has like a really high DC check. It's a sleep gas, and then you wake up somewhere else, and who knows? That's when you get to end up taking part in a maze or a challenge of the champions, or fight to the death against your cohorts or anything. It's like if people go unconscious, you can then do the weird stuff as a DM that you've wanted to do for since junior high.
And again, a 40-year-old scenario, but there's that back in the 80s they had that slaver arc.
Yeah.
And the one with that had that really bright orange, covering, where the last one stops with everybody getting gassed,
Mm-hmm.
And the next one starts with them waking up in a room without their equipment.
Yeah. I was a big fan of A2, the Attack of the Slaver's Keep, or whatever it was, but that was always my favorite. Anyway, but no, definitely. Unconscious, you can do so much stuff with unconscious, and then put people into a place where you can apply other situation modifiers, or just be like, oh, you wake up unconscious. I mean, you go unconscious and you wake up in a room without your weapons. You wake up in a room with all of your magical abilities nullified. You don't see any ways to get in or out of this room, but you couldn't have been placed here unless it was teleportation. You know, and then they have to figure out to lift up this, or, you know, push a hole here, or remove that block, or whatever you want to do as a dungeon master, as a game master, as a keeper of arcane lore, whatever you want to call yourself, and whatever game you're playing. I mean, I feel like this is kind of like a, I don't know, it feels like kind of like a standard thing. It's like a character goes unconscious for some reason, it drops whatever it has, automatically fails strength and dexterity. You know, it can't do anything. They can't do anything. And you know, that's when the PCs get put into the murder maze. That's when the PCs end up being like redressed in fancy clothes and left on a fancy couch in a fancy place or something like that. That's when, you know, they're left naked and afraid in a outback steakhouse. No, in a you know, just like some sort of like desert wasteland or something.
So my favorite PC unconscious story.
Sure.
We were playing, and so we had one tank, and he was a dwarf, and the rest of us were like thieves and wizards and clerics, and we're kind of squishy. So he rushes out and he attacks goblins, whatever it is. And I can't remember, it was either a spell or a poison or something. So they knocked him out. He was ahead of us, and he knocked the big old tank out.
Yeah.
But he still had a lot of hit points. But he was unconscious. And it was very difficult. He was just going through them, and the rest of us was very difficult. So I shot the dwarf with a crossbow to wake him up.
Yeah. One of my personal favorite unconscious stories is I was a fighter who was then shot with a kind of like trank dart, but yeah, it was a poison dart, and I fell down a hole, and I like kept kind of falling and falling and falling and falling. It's like I'd hit something, and then I'd bounce off something, and then I'd hit something else, and I'd bounce off something else, and I'd hit something else, and I'd bounce off something else. And I ended up falling down into a goblin stronghold, but I was unconscious, so I woke up in a smoker. Like I was being like, you know, cured and stuff like that, and they're just gonna like take care of my guts and everything like that later. I woke up in a smoker, stole a bunch of meat that I could identify as not human, and fought my way out of a goblin stronghold.
Well, good for you.
Yeah, slowly like being like, well, here's a knife. Okay, cool. Well, I don't need armor until, okay, well, here's like some other human's armor. Okay, and just like fought my way out, like not up, but kind of like out the side of like this goblin stronghold and out into like the east, and then like met up with my party, and everyone's like, what took you so long? And I'm like, I don't know, but I got some sausage.
And that makes up for everything.
Totally.
Okay, guess what?
What's that?
It ain't rain outside.
Is it snowing?
Yeah.
Oh man, that's crazy.
Yeah. Oh well. Okay.
All right.
That's what it is, but yeah. Oh
Okay. So back to the show, everyone. Farmer Dave reports that it is snowing outside in Oleander. So, hey, meet you up at Dead Man's Hill, everyone. I don't know what else we have to talk about. Oh, we also have to talk about poison. Ugh.
Poison is sort of a strange thing in that it is both a condition and a noun. I guess conditions are nouns too, but it's a thing. It's a thing that creates a condition.
Definitely.
So I know you know this because I think I've asked you this, but people listening may not. What's the difference between a poison and a venom?
Poison is something you consume. Venom is something that consumes you. That's like if you get poked by something, if you get bitten by something, that's venom. So like contact versus ingestion or injury.
By an animal, but okay.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Injury versus ingestion is kind of the thing. But you can also have contact with something, and I don't know if that's considered poison or venom. Or if you inhale something, but yeah.
and so that's one thing. There is definitely, and I don't think it really matters for games, but you've got contact poison, you've got breath poison, you've got a lot of different ways to transmit it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Ingested, inhaled, contact, and injury are the four that I think of. Like, Assassin's blood is ingested, while burnt author fumes are inhaled. Crawler mucus is contact, but drow poison is injury. So, and those are kind of like the four first examples that all happen to be like different types. Like you've got essence of ether inhaled. You've got purple worm poison and serpent venom, which are both injury. And, truth serum, which is ingested. And they're just pretty much modifiers. You can make up your own stuff. It's like malice inhaled. A creature subjected to this poison must succeed a DC 15 Constitution or become poisoned for 1 hour. The poison creature is blinded. You come up with a DC Constitution, DC whatever, versus whatever, and then you create, a creature is subject to this poison, DC 15 Constitution, or becomes poisoned for 46 hours. The poison creature is incapacitated. You can make up stuff. It's not hard, and you base it off of something in the player's handbook or the DM's guide or anything like that. It's poisons just like conditions are something that you use to slow down characters, alter their things, make it so that a character can do something to someone else that isn't like, it's like you create a poison to take down a creature that they couldn't previously take down, or something that's like kind of like a bomb that when ingested, slows everyone down for X many or makes them sleep. There's a lot of things you can do with poison. Dave?
And in the Dark Ages, historically, poison was the equalizer.
Yeah.
That's why historically, not necessarily truly, it was associated with women in the royal courts because they may not have the access to the weapons or upper body strength.
Yeah.
Poison was their equalizer.
Yeah.
Now, in reality, probably more men were poisoners than women. But and it's sort of that enemy that's there. It's psychologically, we're so used to our characters hitting hit points. Yeah, we get worried, we get hit, we're getting low. We get worried about that. But I think to most players, there's something even psychologically more shocking than poison, than being chased out.
Yeah.
And I think the most common poison that I probably have used in all the years I've game mastering is the poison needle trap on a lock.
Most common one I've used is
an oldie but a goodie.
Food poisoning, just common food poisoning. But that's because of the fact that I have like a background in food, and it's just like people not preserving things, and I'll be like, you're all at a -1 because of the fact that you chose to like not do this thing specifically. And I'm nitpicky like that, and I'm the person who's like, yeah, no, there's a difference between laser and plasma weapons, and you have to know the difference between those two and how they operate, so you are at a -2 when you use this. It's that's why
that players are on the lookout for intentional poisoning.
Sure, definitely,
but not necessarily unintentional poisoning.
No. And it's like, if you find a dead deer and you don't have, if no one has survival skill and you find a dead deer, it's like, well, how did the deer die? How long ago did it die? You can use natural poisons to make your game a little bit more interesting. But then again, you also have like you can like throw a pig down a well and poison, throw a couple pigs down a well, throw a couple people down a well, throw a couple sheep down a well, and poison a kingdom with just like putrid grossness.
Absolutely. And again, we're going to see, well poisoning is a real thing historically.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
It's part of a scorched earth.
Mm-hmm.
And so we think of, poison as something that's used in the game, but it could be trying to get rid of the poison or find the cure for the poison could be an entire quest or campaign.
Yeah. I feel like people are more apt to think of using a catapult for bioweapons when I'm like, historically it's more about like poisoning an aqueduct system or poisoning a well or poisoning a water source or like defiling a food source, like sneaking into the food stores and introducing something. And this is where you can like not only get into poisons, but you can get into hallucinogens, which brings us back to the Horned Man. Like if you somehow introduce ergot into a city's grain system, you can have Nyarlathotep showing up as the Horned Man with elk horns,
Absolutely.
Anyway, but that's just me thinking all over the place, but yeah. All right. Well, it's coming to that time, Dave. Do you have anything else to say about poisons?
I think that we are poisoned out.
All right. Well, hopefully we're not, but you know what? We're the DMs, so we've got the antidote. All right, everyone. We will see you next week where we're going to be talking more about Nyarlathotep and more about Dungeons and Dragons, and I hope you've had a good week. I'm recovering. Dave's having a good week, it sounds like, but
until I have to go out in this snow.
Yikes. Yeah, no, I haven't even looked at it yet. Anyway, I'll talk about that later. All right, everyone, have yourself a good November, and check out the new updated stories on pgttcm.com. And also check out our sponsors. They help the show keep going. And if you don't want to buy any of that stuff, check out our t-shirts. We've got a bunch of cool t-shirts right now. And we will talk to you and happy holidays, because I think we're starting to head into those holidays, and we'll see you around, you evil clown.
Make your own.
Yeah. Yeah, it's early November. There needs to be more holidays during this season. So, yeah, happy Sethakwas Day. All right, we'll talk to you later, everyone.
Bye.